Welcome back to Two Robots Talking. We have a massive stack of notes today, and honestly, this one feels personal.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. We're diving into a concept that explains that specific gnawing frustration we all feel when our favorite apps suddenly decide to become, well, terrible.
It is a universal experience, isn't it? You find a digital tool, you fall in love with it, you rely on it.
And then, slowly but surely, it just degrades.
It does.
Right. And usually we just complain that, the new update sucks or that the management lost their way. But today, we are going to learn a new word that frames this not as an accident, but as a strategy.
And that word is?
Enshittification.
It is quite the term. It was coined by the sci-fi author and digital rights activist Cory Doctorow.
It's vulgar, it's funny, but as we go through this deep dive, which is based on Doctorow's conversation with Joe Roast, they're going to realize it's actually a very precise economic term.
Exactly. It's not just an insult, it's a diagnosis.
He's not just an old man yelling at a cloud here.
Yes. Not at all. He's arguing that platforms turning into garbage is a predictable, almost mathematical cycle. And it's caused by specific policy choices. He calls it a pattern of decay.
So our mission today on Two Robots Talking is to unpack the physics of this decay. We're going to look at the tragedy in three acts that creates it, the four horsemen that prevent us from fixing it, and why Dr. Rowe thinks the current AI boom is basically just
An acceleration of the whole process.
Exactly, an acceleration of this rotting process.
He paints a fairly dark picture, yeah, but he also explains why it's happening. And, that's always the first step to fixing something.
Okay, so let's start with the definition. What exactly is enshittification? Because it's not just making things bad, it's about who gets the value, right?
Correct. Doctorow describes it as a shifting of surplus value. Every platform generates value. The question is, who gets to keep it? He breaks this down into three distinct acts.
Act one, I call this the honeypot phase.
Exactly. This is when the platform is brand new.
Yeah.
Think about, the early days of Amazon or Uber or TikTok.
Right.
At this stage, the platform is often operating at a massive loss. They're taking investor money and just using it to subsidize a great experience for you, the end user.
So the rides are cheaper than a taxi, the shipping is free and impossibly fast. The social feed shows you exactly what your friends are doing with no ads. They're basically giving all the surplus value to us.
But they aren't doing it out of charity. They're doing it to create lock-in. Lock-in. They want you to move your whole social graph or your photo library or your business infrastructure onto their platform. They want to make the switching costs, the pain of leaving, extremely high.
Okay, so that's Act 1. We're happy, but we're also becoming trapped. Then comes Act 2.
Act 2 happens once the users are locked in.
Right.
Now that you can't really leave without losing your friends or your customers,
Right.
the platform shifts the surplus value away from you and gives it to the business customers.
The advertisers, the media companies, the third-party sellers.
All of them. And suddenly, your feed isn't your friends anymore. It's sponsored content. The platform creates tools that let advertisers target you with, frankly, spooky precision. They subsidize the suppliers to lock them in, too.
So in Act 1, I'm the spoiled child getting free candy. In Act 2, I'm the product being sold to the advertiser.
For a while, yeah. But the advertiser is getting a great deal.
Until Act 3.
Until Act 3. This is the terminal phase. Once the users are locked in and the business customers are locked in, the platform turns the screws on everybody.
The harvest.
They degrade the service for the users, more ads, worse content, and they degrade the deal for the advertisers, higher prices, less reach, pay-to-play schemes.
So they take all that value that used to go to us and the businesses.
And they hand it directly to the shareholders.
And that is the enshittification equilibrium. The product is barely usable for me, it's expensive for the advertiser, but it's generating maximum cash for the investor.
Precisely. It is the process of extracting every single ounce of life from a dying host.
Dr. O used this visceral metaphor that really stuck with me. He compared these platforms to zombies.
Yes. In the old days, pre-internet, if a restaurant started serving literal garbage,
You'd stop going and it would close, it would die. He mentioned Prodigy, the old online service. It got bad, people left, it just died.
But today, because of that lock-in, these platforms don't die. They become the undead. They shamble along, rotting and shedding value, but we're all trapped inside their carcasses.
Wow.
Because that's where our data lives, our friends, our memories.
That is such a gross image, living inside the rotting carcass of a social network because you can't export your contact list.
It's graphic, but it explains why the internet feels so stagnant sometimes.
Yeah.
We're just surrounded by these zombie companies that really should have died years ago.
This leads to the big question Doctorow tries to answer. Why now? I mean, greedy bosses aren't a new invention. Why do these zombies get to survive today when they wouldn't have 40 years ago?
And this is the systemic part of his argument. He says that the forces that used to punish bad companies, market discipline, have been systematically dismantled.
He calls them the four horsemen of decay.
That's it.
So let's walk through these because this is where we get into the politics and the economics of it. The first horseman is competition, or I guess the lack of it.
Doctorow traces this back to the Reagan era and the rise of the Chicago School of Economics.
Okay.
This was a massive ideological shift. Before this, if a company got too big, the government just broke it up, period. But the Chicago School argued that monopolies were actually fine as long as they were efficient.
The consumer welfare standard. Basically, who cares if there's only one store as long as the prices are low?
Which sounds great until the prices stop being low. The result, 40 years later, is this staggering concentration. Doctorow points out that when he was a kid, there were 30 professional wrestling leagues.
And now there's one, the WWE. He said there were 30 major publishers in New York. Now there are 5.
The example that really freaked me out was the hospital beds. He said there's one company that basically makes all the hospital beds and all the coffins.
No way! Talk about capturing the customer life cycle. From the sick bed to the grave, one balance sheet.
It's unbelievable.
But his point about this concentration isn't just that monopolies are evil, it's that they become stupid. He used the phrase Habsburg jaws.
I loved that analogy. Just like the European royal families inbred themselves into, genetic deformity.
Right.
These industries are so incestuous that executives just rotate between the same 3 boardrooms. There's no outside pressure. They don't have to innovate because they don't have to compete.
They just extract.
Which leads to the second horseman, regulation. If the market won't punish you, the government should. Right?
Ideally. But when companies become this massive, they develop what he calls regulatory capture. They become more powerful than the agencies supposed to oversee them.
The referee is on the payroll.
Effectively, yeah. Doctorow highlights the revolving door. You work for the regulator, then you leave to take a high-paying job at the company you were just regulating. It incentivizes you to be soft on them.
He brought up the Sackler family and Purdue Pharma here. And this really shows it's not just about bad apps. This is life and death.
It's a tragic example. The Sacklers made billions selling OxyContin, causing this massive opioid crisis.
And Doctorow argues the FDA helped them do it by approving misleading labels. That's what happens when the regulator is captured. It turns into an accomplice.
So, no competition, and the referee is corrupt. That leaves the third horseman, worker power.
This is a shift that's happened very recently. For a long time, tech workers were kind of the aristocracy of labor.
Right.
If Google told you to build something unethical or something that would enshittify the user experience, you could just say, no, I'll go work for Facebook.
Scarcity gave them leverage. They could say no.
But Doctorow points out that tech workers never really solidified that power. They didn't unionize because they all thought they were, temporarily embarrassed millionaires. They identified with the bosses.
And now?
Now, with interest rates up and 500,000 layoffs in the tech sector, that scarcity is gone. Fear keeps the workers compliant. If the boss says, fill the app with junk ads, you do it because you need your health insurance.
So the internal brakes are gone too. That brings us to the fourth horseman, which I think is the most technical but also the coolest concept, the death of interoperability.
This is crucial. Computers are universal machines. Doctorow's core thesis is that technically, if a program is bad, you should be able to write a new program to fix it.
He calls it building an 11-foot ladder for a 10-foot wall.
Exactly. So if a social media site is showing you garbage, you should be able to write a script that scrapes your feed and shows it to you in a clean layout.
Technically, yes. That's adversarial interoperability. You're interoperating with them whether they like it or not.
But legally, we've created laws like the Digital Millennium Copyright Act, the DMCA, that make this a felony.
Felony contempt of business model.
That's the phrase. The classic example is printer ink.
Oh, I hate the printer ink racket.
Everyone does. You buy a printer, you buy third-party ink, and the printer just refuses to print. Technically, you could write a patch to bypass that check.
Yeah.
It's your printer, right? But the law says bypassing that digital lock is a crime. They have made it illegal to fix the annoyance.
So let's recap this enshittification trap. You have no competitors.
Monopoly.
You own the regulators.
Sure.
Your workers are too scared to stop you.
No labor power.
And you can sue anyone who tries to build a workaround.
Loss of interoperability. It creates an environment where Being mediocre is just more profitable than being good.
Which brings us to the present moment. Everyone is talking about artificial intelligence. It's supposed to be this new frontier. But Dr. Bill looks at the AI broom and basically says,
This is just another layer of enshittification. He's extremely skeptical. He views the current AI hype as a massive financial bubble.
he broke down the math, and it was pretty shocking. He said the industry has spent something like $600 to $700 billion on hardware GPUs, data centers,
Right.
but they're only seeing about $50 billion in revenue.
And he argues that a lot of that revenue is circular. It's companies paying themselves. He used the example of Microsoft investing billions in OpenAI, but most of that money just comes right back to Microsoft as payment for cloud hosting.
It's like giving your kid a Starbucks gift card. You spent the money, they spend the money, but the family budget didn't actually gain anything.
Exactly. It's accounting gymnastics to prop up stock prices.
Right.
But his critique goes deeper than the money. He talks about the fundamental nature of large language models. He says they lack object permanence.
The peekaboo problem.
Right. An LLM doesn't know anything. It is a probabilistic parrot. It just guesses the next word in a sentence. It doesn't remember what it said 3 paragraphs ago, and it certainly doesn't understand the physical world. It hallucinates.
And yet, bosses are desperate to replace human workers with these hallucinating parrots. Why? This leads to the concept that I think this terrified me the most in this entire deep dive. The reverse centaur.
This is a vital concept for understanding the future of work. So in automation, a centaur is a human assisted by a machine. Think of a chess player using a computer to analyze moves.
Right, the human is in charge. The machine makes them superhuman.
But a reverse centaur is the opposite. It's a human being whose job is to accommodate the machine. Or, more cynically, a human whose job is to be the moral crumple zone for the machine's mistakes.
The radiologist example he gave was just chilling.
It really was. He says the sales pitch for medical AI isn't, this bot diagnoses better than a doctor. The pitch to the hospital administrator is, fire half your doctors. Have the bot read the x-rays. Then have the remaining doctors just sign off on the bot's work.
So the doctor isn't actually diagnosing. Their only function is to put a human signature on the page so that if the bot misses a tumor and the patient sues.
The hospital can blame the doctor. It wasn't our algorithm. Dr. Smith signed it. The human absorbs all the liability.
That is the reverse centaur.
Wow. We see this with Amazon drivers, too. The algorithm plans the route so tightly that the driver can't stop to pee. The human body is being damaged to meet the strict, unyielding math of the machine.
It forces the human to act like a robot's component, rather than the other way around.
So why do billionaires want this? If the AI is worse than a human writer or worse than a human doctor, why push for it so hard?
Dr. O's take is, it's psychological. He believes that the ultra-wealthy dream of a world without people in it.
That is supervillain territory.
It sounds like it, but it's about control. Humans are messy, they unionize, they have rights, they tell you when your script is bad.
If you tell ChatGPT to write a terrible movie script, it just says, certainly. It never pushes back.
So enshittification, in the end, is about removing human agency. It's about creating a system where the user, the worker, and the supplier are all just cogwheels for the shareholders.
That is the grim reality. However, Dr. O doesn't think this is inevitable.
No, he actually points out that this whole strategy might be backfiring on a global scale. He talks about the post-American internet.
Right, the geopolitical angle.
Yeah.
For decades, the world used American tech because it was the best. But now, with the U.S. weaponizing its tech stack...
You mean like cutting off access to countries it doesn't like or spying via these platforms?
Exactly. The rest of the world is opting out. They're building sovereign clouds.
Because if you can't trust Microsoft not to turn off your country's email, you build your own servers.
Right, so Dr. Go suggests the American internet is ending, not because of competition, but because we made our own tech too toxic to rely on. We enshittified our soft power.
Before we wrap up, I want to pivot to something practical. Joe Reese asks Dr. O how he manages to stay so prolific. The guy writes books, blogs, articles. He's a machine.
He is.
And he shared a technique called the Memex method.
I found this very inspiring. He blogs every single day. But he's not doing it to get likes or for an audience. He's doing it for himself. He calls it a memory expander.
He used this beautiful image of kneading dough.
Yes. He says that reviewing his old notes, things he wrote 1, 5, 10, even 20 years ago, is like folding the dried out edges of dough back into the center to keep it fresh.
So by rereading his old thoughts every morning, he keeps them active in his brain. It creates this super associative database.
And he can connect the dots between printer ink laws in 2005 and AI regulation in 2025 because he's constantly refreshing those memories.
It's the opposite of the social media feed where things just scroll by and vanish. It's about building a garden of knowledge.
So as we close out this deep dive, what is the big takeaway? Enshittification feels like gravity. It feels like the world just naturally gets worse.
But Doctorow's message is that it is not gravity.
It's a policy choice. We chose to stop enforcing antitrust laws. We chose to let companies lock us in, which means we can choose differently.
We can demand interoperability. We can break up monopolies.
And on a personal level, we can refuse to be reverse centaurs. We can ask ourselves, are we using our tools to become better? Or are the tools using us as liability sponges?
That is the uncomfortable question I want to leave you with. Look at your job. Look at your tech. Are you the centaur or are you the crumple zone?
It's a question worth asking.
Huge thanks to Cory Doctorow for the incredible insights and to Joe Rees for the source interview. This has been Two Robots Talking.
See you in the next deep dive.